I should have known you'd be behind this fiendish Dr. Wu. Your knowledge of scientific biological transmogrifications is only outmatched by your zest for kung fu treachery.
Your kung fu is quite extraordinary. Like dynamite. No match for mine.
Fiendish Dr. Wu! You done fucked up now!
But now we do it, more formulaically, is why do, is we actually sell the why. Like when I explain what I do, I tell people, I basically sell open dreams. And I fulfill it. Sometimes I fulfill it with SaaS. Sometimes I fulfill it with a physical product. Sometimes I fulfill it with an info product. But ultimately, I'm selling open dreams of some sort of desired end result. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Absolutely makes sense, yeah.
So that's kind of how I look at it. So, like, if you look at it, you got me thinking. So let me pull this up real quick on my end. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see how to do this. I'm going to share this right here. And this was kind of exciting for me, as a copywriter, side of things. You see my screen okay? You see, like, a presentation or whatever?
Yeah, I see it.
If you look at how we do it, in this case, we're basically, we're selling like a children's education product, I'm not saying, I believe it's a good product we put together. I'm not saying it's a bad product, but in the grand scheme of, children's education products and stuff like that, there's thousands of them out there, right? It's like, if you're selling, like, webinar software, if you're selling some sort of stat tool or whatnot, the reality is, like, we're not that special snowflakes, it's all the same thing. But what we do is, if you can imagine, I hit it initially, like, I literally, like, what I'm selling, I don't view myself as selling, like, the problem is not to say buy my product. I'm trying to, like, sell a movement or a change. So in this case, this offer that we have, we're focused on the African-American niche. And we're basically selling, we basically sell it as religion, right? So we're packaging as, like, Black economic power needs to become the second religion. We're gonna sell you on how to properly educate your children, create your own job. Like, literally, like, this is what we sell.
Correct.
That's how we position it. And what's interesting, and this is actually great because, like, we were on the webinar, and Boyce, who's, he's the main character. He's like the pitch guy. He's my, info product guy.
Yeah.
Like, actually, if you look at it, we had we literally go completely off tangent, which is good, but it's like, let me just read this copy to you, and I'd be curious to get your opinion. So we're basically selling, let me take that back. We are selling hope. We are fulfilling it through an online education product. But, like, this is kind of the pitch. It's like, growing up, I was the Black kid who wanted to be invited in the space of the white man, blah, 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 And it's like, and I remember just having a day when I said, I'm not going to pretend to be somebody else. I'm not going to fit in, trying to hope that these white folks like me because I'm a good person. I learned how to love, blah, like, all this sort of stuff. It's like this self-realization point. And what's interesting is this is actually one of our, and maybe you'll think that I'm this evil person. This is actually a practice and planned effort to get to a critical close point. And actually, I was really excited because, and this wasn't planned, but, like, when Boyce was actually pitching, or not pitching, he was educating. We're all about educating. We don't sell here. He was educating. He actually, like this became like an epiphany moment for him. And I have him on, we're on, like, YouTube Live and the webinar and everything. He's tearing up. Like, he cries for a good 30 to 45 seconds. And it's awesome. Let me see if I can find, like, I think the video is still up somewhere on YouTube. If I can go pull it up, let me find this real quick. From earlier this week. Hold on. And now I need to find something that takes forever to load. But, like, that point, like, literally, like, we spent, like, the presentation, we spent 4 minutes, like, he just, like, broke down and was, like, he just couldn't keep himself together. And the customer response in terms of comments at that time just completely blew up. and I don't want to make it sound like it's completely manufactured, or, well, I guess it somewhat is, but this was, you know, beyond my expectations. But, like, the phones or the online, you know, like, the orders started ringing in because, like, people were able to emotionally identify with the why. They were able to, like, experience that transition. Let me go find, like...
It sounds to me like it went from a functional product up into an emotional product, right?
Oh,
and
it's all...
yeah. And
let me stop my screen here while I pull up the video comment.
Okay, and that was Charles Wu, and this is someone who is a paid contractor for Dr. Boyce Watkins. That is what he called him. He recently had an interview on Thought Crimes, and they gave him a few questions, and they opened the floor up to him to say what he needed to say. And also people called in and asked certain questions and expressed how they feel and what it looked like, what this video looked like. Because me sitting here listening to this, and personally, I don't have anything against Yvette Carnell. I actually like a lot of what she has to say, and I have been watching her live streams. I do lean more towards in her direction when she is talking about capitalism and politics and everything like that. And you just have to go through her videos to hear what she has to say. And I do not disagree with her. And with Boyce Watkins, I don't disagree with some of the things that he says about progressing, because I do believe that you can actually do both. You can realize where you are as a demographic in this system and in this world, but you can also strive to progress. And I think it's like what the system has set up, it has to be either or. It's right or wrong. Both people can't be right or can't be wrong on certain things. There has to be a good and a bad, or a good and an evil. And someone has to pick. It has to be left or right. It has to be Democrat or Republican. It has to be, you know, you have to pick a side. I think anybody was bringing into question his degree because he spoke about that. I don't think people were even bringing in his product as to say they know absolutely that this is a crappy class. Maybe two people who called in who actually took his class, and there was no negativity or anything said regarding that. But I think what happened was Dr. Boyce Watkins, he was talking about black business and black first. So when you hear that this is a black owned business, you're thinking, okay, the CEO, the president, is black. And you think that, you know, they have this wonderful product, and what they're doing is they are employing black people. They are contracting black people to do certain jobs. They want to give black people opportunity. And you are thinking by his words alone that it's black first before anything. If I can't find it within my demographic, then I can go elsewhere. And I don't think, you know, anybody would have an issue even with that. Keeping it business, this was problematic, because if you are in a business relationship and this person is contracted to perform a service for you, a business service, then there should be clear boundaries and lines that are not crossed within business. There is nobody here in any demographic who would ever allow someone to do this to them, and then the person that they contracted to do a job for them would not suffer the consequences, possibly losing future business with them. The person who contracted them coming out publicly and saying, you know, this is not a good business practice. This is the evidence of this person's lack of skill. And also, I mean, even as far as a lawsuit, if someone is slandering and defaming you and your business. So I think what was taken from what you just heard was the fact that Charles Wu was contracted to build this for Boyce Watkins. He then had an interview with a Caucasian male, and then it is the way that he spoke, was the way that he painted Dr. Boyce Watkins, which was very weak, that, you know, he almost cried at his presentation. I'm like, that makes Boyce Watkins seem very weak, and that goes to his character. Also, the way he talked about the Black demographic, to say that, you know, we're selling them hope, we're selling them religion, we're selling them this. And when you hear it talked about in that way, any good business person will know that you want to possibly sell or bring into a business. You would never say that to them. You would keep that behind closed doors in the board meeting if that's the way you talk, or not say it at all. Charles Wu was basically saying, you know, Boyce Watkins was his puppet to sell to the African American demographic. And he was saying, since it works well, it would be good to have a black face selling hope to the African American demographic while we're behind the scenes collecting the funds. That's the way it came across to me. He had this epiphany while working with Boyce Watkins. He gained some type of knowledge and information saying, you know, this is where black people are. This is what you can sell them, and you can be successful at presenting this to them. It's kind of like the Dr. Umar's and a few of the other ones out there in the Pan-Africanism, possibly in the pro-black circuit, like your brother Polites, you know, people like that. It is good to have that face in front of whatever they're trying to sell you, while behind the scenes, it's them who's reaping the benefits and reaping the fruits from the African American demographic. As one could imagine, African Americans, they had an issue with this. Personally, I have an issue with the language that it was being talked about to someone else, that this information was gained and he had an idea of how to take funds from the African American community and then get it into the Caucasian and Asian community. So this was his strategy and plan, and he thought Dr. Boyce Watkins was the perfect example of what he was trying to explain to this Caucasian businessman. I think the lack of regard for African American, and that we're just something to be reaped. And I do think seeing an Asian man and talking to a Caucasian man about further just sucking whatever few dollars that we have in our community out, it rubbed a lot of African American people the wrong way, as to be expected. And then on top of that, you had Dr. Boyce Watkins not say something immediately, even if it had to do with business. We were wanting him to handle business, because no businessman or woman is ever going to let you slander or defame their character, which could have a negative effect on their business. This coming from a business administration major seems very bad on you, which can then reflect bad on your product when you affiliate yourself with someone who does not know how to handle business, does not know how not to cross certain lines within business, and does not know how to properly vocalize a point without being offensive to a certain demographic. If you are the best, then you should act like that and act like you have some common sense and you can word whatever you need to in the way that you need to without coming off as offensive. But it seems like he didn't care. Charles Wu did not care about offending the African American demographic. It was just about, he saw this, he wanted to pitch it, and he got an idea of how he could go in and further get money from the African American demographic. It was very disgusting in how he said it and what he was saying. And then people are looking at Boyce Watkins as if, okay, so are you a puppet? Are you willing to take the money that you will gain and then sell the African American demographic down the river so your friend Charles Wu and his Caucasian friends can then reap from our community? Like, are you being the face of this whole thing and they are getting the majority of the benefit and you're happy with what you'll be getting out of this? That was a question. It was never a question about his product or his degree, ever. He really talked about a lot of things. He even talked about Yvette Carnell. That had nothing to do with why he was even on Thought Crimes, but you heard the double talk. He sound like some of these people who are on MSNBC and Fox News, and they're really not saying anything because they don't want to stand up and say what they're really saying. What I ended up hearing is how he got aggressive at the end of his interview with Thought Crimes, is that, you know, he was talking to certain black people. If you don't want to mess with me, if you don't want to F with me, then don't click on my channel, don't watch me. I thought that was pretty interesting because I believe that's what African American people wanted to see out of him towards Charles Wu. They wanted to not have him cuss anyone out. He could have handled this in a very respectful and business-like way, saying, you know, you have damaged my image. This looks to me like slander and defamation. And also, your business practices are not up to par. So you can no longer be on the project. I will not be contracting with you anymore. And just to let him know the lines that he crossed. And he could have kept it strictly business. That's what people were looking for, him to step up, since he's so passionate about black businesses and black people. You can't have someone in your business who is so dismissive and disrespectful to that demographic. And no, he didn't do it. He basically said that Charles Wu met his family. He didn't believe he was racist. The wording was wrong. He made every excuse in the book with this man. He even had an interview with this man. And just the look on his face, he was very dismissive of Boyce. I'm not a person who is for Boyce or against Boyce. I don't have a dog in the fight, but when I first heard about him and saw him, he was talking about finances and black businesses and what black people should be doing and investing, and I thought that was wonderful and good and great. I thought he was teaching, you know, with what you have, where you are right now, and to get to where you want to be. But you do have to pay a fee for his classes and things like that, but to help build some wealth with certain black people who are more interested in that. But then when you see what's going on behind the scenes, it looks shady. And that is only because he did not handle someone who was very dismissive and disrespectful and very unprofessional. He did not handle him properly. And he still wants to do business with Charles Wu, and he is still going to. I basically got from that whole interview that when push comes to shove, Dr. Boyce Watkins is about his business. He is going to do business with whoever can make him successful, and the hell with black people and the black community that he says that he cares about so much. It rubbed me the wrong way. You know, he's talking to some of his subscribers who saw this one thing. They've been with him for years, and they saw him do this one thing, and it rubbed them the wrong way. And instead of him trying to understand about people who support him and how that affected them or made them feel, and he apologized on behalf of Charles Wu, which that was not necessary. That is not what people were looking for. It was just, you know, standing up as a black man and a business owner and so educated that you should handle this situation properly when you're dealing with someone who presented themselves to you as a professional businessman that could offer a service and then acted unprofessionally. There should be consequences to that. And it doesn't have to be name calling and cursing. Handle it in a professional business way. And down some consequences, and there was none. And it was basically middle finger to you Negroes who have a problem with me still working with him and not throwing him under the bus. And he also said that some of the black people who were talking about him were saying nasty, mean, racist things, but he couldn't understand how the way Charles Wu talked about African Americans when he was speaking with that Caucasian man, how it basically was just talking about us like we weren't even human. We were just this little symbol on his marketing scheme or his marketing plans. I'll go ahead and leave a link to the interview that he did with Crimez, and I will leave a link to his interview with Charles Wu. And let me know what you think about this whole situation. What do you think of Dr. Boyce Watkins? What do you think of how he handled Charles Wu? And what do you think about him going back to Yvette Carnell with this whole situation that did not involve her? And just go ahead and comment, and I will see you in the next one.